How's it going, everybody? Most of you are probably still digesting the Lawbringer rework, or maybe are even done with it already, and since he is without question a community favourite, many people have their own opinions on how a character needs to be reworked. And one of the most requested changes next to Hyper Armor is a revamp of Longarm, and many opt for the approach to make the move Feintable. Well, make it an in-chain move and make it Feintable, as well as keep the move from neutral. This was especially evident when looking at the complaints about the in-chain shove. A lot of people wanted Longarm instead of that. So let's actually look at this and paint the picture, what it would look like if Lawbringer got a Feintable Longarm. As the basis for Longarm, we will take the testing ground version that has all the needed fixes for that move. It's no longer unsafe, no longer accessible from Impale, and so on. The good changes. The move confirms 27 damage with ongoing chain pressure via the unblockable heavies. So all in all, Longarm, if you manage to land it, is a pretty good move. That was always the big crux with the move, actually landing it. A rather slow move with 1000 MS, so unless you're already in some form of recovery, or the move gets confirmed, it is very likely that you dodge it on reaction quite easily. On top of that, the move has a lot of recovery when you miss it. A guard break is always guaranteed, and in general, it sits among the moves with the worst recoveries out there. So even if it is very rewarding to land, it is way too risky to even try. I'm not really telling you guys anything new here though. This is all pretty common knowledge. We do have other moves that we can compare it to. For one, we have Medjai's Staff Bash. That one is ever so slightly faster at 900 MS, but also confirms less damage with 20. But it does apply the Moonlight Drain tier 2 feats defense debuff effect. So the move is more integrated in Medjai's kit. And it can also be used in chain after a light attack. Granted, a not very useful chain, but it's there nonetheless. Unlike Longarm, this move works extremely well as a ganking tool. It absolutely has its place, and yet people also requested buffs to it. Just like Longarm, they wanted to make it Feintable. They want to repurpose it, for the lack of a better word, but I'll get back to that in just a second. The other move that would be comparable to a Feintable Longarm is Afira's Neutral Bash, Knockout Punch. That one is considerably faster at 700 MS, but it also requires a follow-up heavy to apply the damage, unlike Medjai's that does direct damage. We'll talk damage in just a bit, so let's look at the speed difference first. All of you who have played Afira have experienced being interrupted when doing the neutral bash. People like pressing buttons, and even when being frame positive, it very rarely stops people from doing so. Now imagine having a bash that is 300 MS slower. You're even more prone to being interrupted. I'd say we might even look at a scenario where people train themselves to interrupt Longarm on reaction. If the move is Feintable, you should be able to deal with interrupt attempts, but keep in mind that slower moves also have their feint window at a later point. We've talked about this very recently in Nusha's trap video. Feints do happen at 400 MS before impact, meaning Afira feints way earlier than Lawbringer would, so she has an easier time to deal with interrupt attempts. Despite that, I don't think we'd run into a scenario where interrupts become unparable for the Lawbringer, but it would be something they'd have to look out for. The other big problem is the damage. Remember the big outcry with Afira that a neutral, unreactable bash mix-up confirms a heavy? In her case, it was 18 damage with a conditional wall splat that would up it to 43. Nothing to scoff at, even without the wall splat. In Lawbringer's case, we'd be looking at 27 damage for a neutral, unreactable mix-up, because that needs to be the goal when reworking a move. It needs to be an effective, unreactable mix-up, and as it stands, that move confirms a top heavy plus Swift Justice. All the alarm bells should be ringing now. If people were already rioting about Afira getting a reduced damaged heavy, then the 27 of Lawbringer should lead to even worse. Yet, there is one small yet very important detail when it comes to reworking characters. Ubisoft always needs to keep an eye on how that change will be perceived within the community. I don't know whether it's harder or easier with a hero like Lawbringer. Lawbringer mains are very particular with the identity of the character. I guess every group is like that when it comes to their main. Point here is though that Lawbringer is known for big punishes. Deserved or not, he's always done a lot of damage. That is why I was also surprised that people were fine with the in-change of only confirming a light, and not a heavy or even a special move, similarly to what we have on Jormungandr, Tiandi or Valkyrie. Part of that identity shtick is also the purpose of a move. Like I've briefly mentioned with Medjai's Staff Bash, that move is very clearly designed to be used as a ganking tool. It's not something you're supposed to use in a 1v1 scenario, you will be punished for that. It is slow, it has bad recovery, it isn't very rewarding for the risk you take, so all the requests of making that move feintable will fall on deaf ears. The move was simply not designed that way, and it never had to be usable everywhere. It has its niche, and is arguably even too strong in that niche. And now we need to ask the same question for Longarm. What's the move's job? When are we supposed to use it? Do we want it to be a 1v1 tool like a Fira's Bash? Or do we want it to have a strong niche use, like Medjai's Bash? Or even somewhere in between? Whatever we agree on will have effects on how the move needs to change. And that is the most important takeaway from this video. We cannot just make it feintable and then say, everything's fine, because it probably won't be. Additional small changes and tweaks are needed to make a balanced move. A move that works with the whole kit and doesn't piss off the community. We sometimes forget that these reworks are some twisted form of politics as well. You need to please the community on top of attempting to create a well-balanced kit. Is it possible to make a feintable Longarm work? Definitely. Is it as easy as just slapping the property on the existing version? Definitely not. Let me know if this video has changed your mind on Longarm, or maybe you identified some new role for the move that you'd like to see. I'm sure we'll have many more Lawbringer videos in the near future until that rework is ironed out. So let me know what you think, maybe I can explain some things clearer to you next time we see Lawbringer changes pop up. Having said that, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.
Then someone else arrives and you suddenly don't have a tier 1 anymore.
You see that? He reacted to my trap with tier 4, bro.
Yeah, with the catapult.
He reacted to my trap with catapult feet. Like, what?
The catapult feature.
Like, man just saw a trap and pressed 4. Dude, that's actually next level knowledge. Like, I would never have guessed that in a million years.